Gents, we are live.
All right, so welcome to Inclination Cafe. This is our third podcast of the Incline Tracker series. So my name is Christel. I have here Greg Cummings, and we have Trevor, my co-host. And of course, Trevor will be introducing Greg.
Yes, Greg, thank you for being here. It's very exciting to talk with you today and help share your story. Greg is known locally as a legend. He has accomplished so many things, and we're going to talk about that today. But to preface the conversation, here's a couple of things that he's done that you may have heard of. So he currently holds the record for the most Manitou Incline ascents in 1 year at 1,825 laps. And the Manitou Incline, if you haven't heard of it, is a mountain that has stair steps that go up it, and it's about 2,000 foot elevation gain. So he's gone up that 1,825 times in 1 year. This has resulted in him holding the world record for the most vertical foot ascended in a year. And this is actually the third time in his life that he's held on to this title. He's also the first person to complete 500 incline climbs in a single year and 1,000 incline climbs in a single year, which resulted in him founding the 500 club and the 1,000 club. So that is quite the list. We'll talk about all of that in depth here in a little bit. But before we do that, I do want to share or give an opportunity for these two to share a personal story about how you met, because it's very fascinating.
So I would like to start off on that.
Go for it.
In late 2018, as I was preparing to attempt to set a record on the incline, and which ended up being the 1,825 ascents in 1 year, which I was planning to start in January. I was up on the incline late that year, working out, and I was going up having a really great day, no real issues. And then suddenly I'm getting up towards the top and I'm not feeling good. I've had type 1 diabetes since I was 24 years old, which is just a mind-boggling disease, very, very complicated to try to understand for anyone who doesn't have type 1 diabetes. And of course, exercise just complicates that exponentially. So I was up there not feeling very good, but for some reason I kept going pretty well. Didn't feel horrible as I do many times when I have low blood glucose. But as I got up towards the top, I just kind of lost consciousness, only to the point of not being able to comprehend really where I was. But evidently, physically, I was still able to complete the ascent, but my ability to comprehend where I was gone. And that comes from low blood glucose, something you don't ever want to have.
Well, I can pick it up from there.
And then I want to hear his story. I've never heard this story before, by the way. This is all a first for me.
Well, I can pick it up from there because I am going up the incline and I saw Greg. Usually we just say hello to each other, like, hey, hi, just like this, thumbs up. So when I came back from my thumbs up going toward one of the rocks and coming back going down the incline, before I stepped onto the incline, I saw Greg standing there with a little candy in his hand. And I said, are you okay? And he literally fell on my hand. And so I put him down and I called I said, help. And then look into his fanny bag. And that's when I figured out he was a diabetic. And so there was a couple of ladies there. They kind of helped get some glucose tablet from your bag and got some water, mix them together, started shoving glucose.
So how was I acting at that
You
time?
were shaking. Actually, at first you weren't shaking. So we got scared. We were going to call 911. So I told him, I'm a nurse. So I'll just, so I looked into the fanny bags. So I started getting glucose tablet. I said, okay, let's get some water here. Just get them in your mouth. And you were able to swallow. So we kept pushing water and glucose tablets. A few minutes later, you started shaking. So I told him, well, that's a good sign because, so it started shaking. And then a few minutes later, he was like, oh, what's going on? And then so the lady says, well, it looks like you're okay. I asked if you want me to call your wife. You said no. Well, your family. I asked if you wanted to call 911. You said no. And then I said, okay, I'm out. So I went down. And by the time I got to the bottom, you were already waiting for me at the bottom. And so that's how we met.
And when I saw him, I had seen him up top, of course, right after I had become conscious again, and was very appreciative, of course, of what he did. But when I saw him down in the Iron Springs Chateau parking lot, I went over to him and I give him this big bear hug, and I said, "Man, you just saved my life. Thank you." I think he was like, "Get this guy away from me," but no.
We didn't know each other that well.
Yeah, we not
we
well
just like
enough to
thumbs
hug.
up. Usually I just go up and do my incline and come down, and he's the same way. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's how we met.
But I really owe Christel for that. One thing I just want to say is that I did not tell my wife about this. If I had told my wife about this, there's no way she would have allowed me, she would have just canceled the whole thing, to do the event that started a few months later in January of 2019 and became the record for the number of ascents in a year being 1,825.
But I would say
she would have canceled that.
I would say that
didn't tell-
inspired me.
I didn't tell her until after the 1,825 is over. Then I told my wife.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what inspired
Yeah.
me to start doing my 500 journey. So after that, I decided, okay, I'll do 500 incline. If he can do 1,000 with diabetes, I could do 500. So that's how we started all that. So anyway, Trevor, what else we have
Yeah,
here?
so I just want to comment, Greg, you literally fell into the perfect person's hands.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? If this was me, I would have.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I would not have known exactly what to do,
Oh, exactly.
and there would have been a delay that may have been too long.
It may be lethal is
Would
the
have,
problem.
yeah. So you fell into the perfect hand. So that's
Well,
such an amazing.
Now you told me not to call your wife, and now you said your wife would not allow you to continue that event. So now tell us a little bit about your family. If you want to talk about your family, your hobbies, and how they're involved in this journey.
Yeah, I have the most wonderful wife. She grew up here in town. She was the student body president of Mitchell High School. I went to Air Academy High School, graduated there, barely. She was much more advanced there academically than I was, but we have a very long history together. We've got two children. As a matter of fact, our 45th wedding anniversary for my wife and I, of course, was yesterday. So we're now at 45 years and one day we've been married, and we were like best buds for 2 years before that. So regarding diabetes, my wife has been through so much trauma associated with my type 1 diabetes. Her and my daughter have literally had to go into counseling for PTSD because of how many times they have seen me in much worse shape than what Christel was talking about. Because of my diabetes.
Wow.
In fact, my family will even make the statement that they believe they have saved my life from extremely low blood glucose, where I'm totally checked out, having a seizure, whatever. It's very complicated. They estimate over 100 times, which is just mind-boggling. Type 1 diabetes is a killer disease.
Yeah.
You have to use a medication called insulin, and insulin becomes extremely powerful when you are involved in extreme exercise. Its strength just becomes exponential. So the tiniest little bit can do you in.
So tell us a little bit how you grew up with this disease. Like, how did you grow up hiking? How did you manage with that disease?
I was 24 years old when I was diagnosed. So no, I did not grow up with the disease, thankfully. My family moved to Colorado in 1970 from Southern California. And I could go into all the story there, but we'll just leave that out. And I just immediately fell in love with the mountains. I didn't have hardly any experience out in Southern California, before I was 13 years old. But I started getting together with people who like to hike, just friends, and we'd go do things. And nothing like it is today. You'd have old clothes and some boots, and you'd hike a little ways at Bar Trail or whatever, and that was a great event. When I was just a young kid. So, but I immediately fell in love with the mountains, and that was kind of a problem because I'd sit at Air Academy High School, which is right next to the mountains, and just daydream. Look outside and daydream all day. So my academics there was not the best.
Yeah, yeah. So I think Trevor, you wanted to ask him a little bit about why Manitou Incline, right?
Yeah, what brought you to the Manitou Incline for the first time? And what was it like taking that first step on the incline?
Well, I have to go back a little bit further than that. When I was a kid, in my late teens, late teens, early 20s, I used to ride up the Manitou Incline Railway. It was a cable car, and you could ride to the top, which I did a couple of times with friends. We go up to the top, hang around, and then take the train back down. So this is when it was truly a train, not a hiking trail. Nobody was allowed on the incline. And a lot of times what I would do, and this was one of my favorite things to do, was to hike to the top of Pikes Peak on the weekend, come back down Bar Trail to where the little trail goes off to the top of the incline, get over to the top of the incline and go into the little building that was up there, order a hot chocolate at the snack bar, and pay $3 to ride the cable car
So
down.
that was a building there.
I did that many times.
Wow.
It was fun riding down with the tourists and hearing the joke by the conductor, you know. If the cable breaks, don't worry about it. There's two huge springs to catch you down there. Manitou Springs and Colorado Springs, you know.
So was it like
You're
an
in trouble.
Inclination Cafe on top, or was there anything else, like coffee, like chocolate?
You got to realize this was in the late 1970s. It was just a building with some souvenirs, you know, where the people coming up, the tourists could get out, go in and order a little bit of food. And it was just very basic things, you know, chips and candy bars and
But I would have
hot
never
chocolate.
thought that.
and that kind of
There
thing.
there were a
Yeah.
shop.
Oh yeah,
up there.
absolutely. Yeah, it'd pull right in there.
They just
It-
pulled all the supplies up the cart each day, and the employees went up the cart.
That is correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And there was a guy who stayed at the top all night long. I got to know him
Really?
just a few years ago. He's still hanging around. So
Oh.
yeah.
That's a cool
Yeah.
job to have.
Oh yeah. But it was a very special time, a very different time than it is now.
Yeah, there's-
It was not nearly as popular as it is now.
There's not many people that can remember the incline before it was a tourist attraction. Being
As
stairs,
as
stairs,
as
yeah.
a hiking trail.
But
Yeah.
then I heard there were that stopped. What happened? Just tell us about why did this guardrail stop?
Supposedly there was a landslide up there, wiped out a lot of
In the 90s, I heard.
I think it was late 80s, early 90s,
Yep.
and wiped out a big section of the tracks. And it would have cost a lot of money to go ahead and rebuild it. And like I say, it wasn't that popular in the first place. So I don't know how profitable it was financially, but they just decided that they would close it, and they disassembled the whole thing. It was just amazing, you know, taking apart the cable and getting that down, and all these big cog wheels, and, you know, disassembling the shop and all that at the top. And
I remember the first day I did the incline, there were parts of the incline we had to go on our fours to get, you know, to the next step.
okay,
It was so,
yeah,
it was not, there was nothing there really. Some of them were just dirt.
yeah.
And then there was all these pipes and these nails, right?
Yeah, the big
from
rebar
guardrail,
sticking up,
right?
the
Oh,
cut
yeah.
open
Oh,
pipes
yeah.
for drainage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The incline went through a rebuilding process over 3 separate years. They weren't consecutive years. I'm starting in 2014, and it is very different than it would look like prior to that. It was in such bad shape prior to that if you fell off the side in certain places, you were in trouble. I mean, serious trouble.
Yeah.
You may not have survived. I mean, you'd hit your head on a rock or something. It was a long ways down. So
Or get stabbed
Yeah.
by rebar or
absolutely
cut on the
And that
drainage.
happened
Yeah.
many times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, people would get hurt up there often.
Well,
So,
I'm curious, were you always an athlete growing up, or is
Yes.
this something okay?
yeah, I just used to love running. I lived to run when I was a kid, sprinting and that kind of thing. Not so much endurance, but I just loved any kind of athletics
Okay.
as a kid. Yeah.
So
But
when
that became a whole lot more narrowed as I grew up.
yeah, so when you first started hiking the incline, was it just a natural thought to see how many times you could go up and down in a year?
I climbed it once with my daughter, just kind of as something to do. We came over to hike up Bar Trail, and I think she might have said, "Hey, let's go do the incline." So we did. That was after, of course, it was all disassembled, and it was um, a trail, but it was illegal to go up there. They never enforced it and gave anyone a penalty for going up there. But you could go up at will. But yeah, we just decided to go up it, and I don't really recall how I started to go up so often. But I guess I can, as far as the way the 601, the 601 ascents that I did in 2011, which was the first record on the incline for most ascents in a year. I definitely know how that started, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe this is a perfect time to go
Exactly.
into that. So
Yeah.
anyone who's hiked the Manitou Incline knows how challenging it can be. And for someone to think, I'm going to go do it again the next day and the next day and the next day, some people can't fathom that. For you to do 601, that's more than one a day, almost two a day. And that was just the very first record 15 years ago. So can you walk us through what it was like doing that first record attempt and how you conditioned your body up to it, how you stayed sane going up it so many times, and like walk us through what life was like during that first record.
It's a much more varied story than that.
And I think this is a side story too. Choosing to do the incline, I think
Yeah.
your journey started really wanting to do what you call vertical feet toward the International Space Station, right?
Yes.
So there we go.
It's very kind of odd how it all started out. One day I had hiked. I used to hike up different distances of a bar trail every Friday afternoon. So this day I came up. I went up to Bar Camp. I'm sorry, up to A-frame at Timberline. Turned around and started back down. And I was thinking on the way down, what am I going to do? This was in the summer. I'm thinking, what am I going to do to stay in shape this year? Because I always have this tendency, or had this tendency, I guess I still do, to slough off in the wintertime, like so many of us do, and gain a few pounds, and then have to work hard in the springtime to, get back in shape and take off a few pounds. So I'm trying to think on the way down, what can I do to motivate myself to stay in shape all winter long? So as I'm hiking down Bar Trail, where it comes close to the incline there, whereas now we call it the Vale Trail, I thought, well, what about the incline? And the thought came, well, what if I tried to hike the incline once a week for a year, which is just like a mind-boggling thought. I thought, oh, that's just crazy. That's just too much. And I did the math in my head. It was like, my gosh, that's like from climbing from sea level to the summit of Mount Everest and back to sea level. Of course, not with all the difficulty of Mount Everest, but just as far as the elevation, 3.5 times in 1 year. And I'm just like, no way I could do that, and so that began the whole thought process of using the incline to do something. But then, of course, this evolutionary process in your mind continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it went from maybe I could do it 52 times in a year to maybe I could do it 104 times in a year, which would be twice a week for a year, and then it continued on and on and on, maybe 500,000 feet. Maybe could I do 1,000,000 feet? You're just going crazy with thoughts. And then I started thinking about, how high is that International Space Station? What's that rough orbit up there? And I found out that at the time it was roughly 1.15 million vertical feet. And I just keyed in on that. I wonder if that is possible. I looked through the web, and search engines were nothing like they are today. So it wasn't easy to find information. But I searched and searched, and it appeared that no one had ever done anything like that. So in late 2010, I began a 365 consecutive day effort to see so 1 year, to see if I could reach enough elevation, climb enough accumulated elevation in 1 year to reach the rough orbit of the International Space Station. And then, of course, the incline was just the logical place, because you could gain roughly 2,000 vertical feet in just, a matter of quite a few minutes, but minutes. And so I started keying in on that. And as it turned out, it obviously turned out to be 601 ascents in the year, but 33 of those ascents I went on to the top of Pikes Peak and back down to the top of the Manitou Incline and then descended the incline. So there was that. So, and then I did one climb of the peak with friends and straight back down the bar trail. So I did 34 round trips of Pikes Peak, which, you know, you got to factor in that the incline was part of that 33 times. And then other little mountains around in certain areas of Colorado that accumulated to just under 1.4 million vertical feet. And so I was way ahead of the height of the International Space Station. But something that was so weird that happened, they've never done this before, but as I'm doing this thing of trying to reach the ISS, the International Space Station, they decide to move the thing up to a different orbit.
Of course, right?
It's like, are you kidding me? You know, I mean, how many people are trying to reach the ISS in vertical feet hiking, and they just happen to move it up that same year? You know, so they moved it up 160,000 vertical feet to 1.31 million vertical feet. But then, of course, I ended up climbing just under 1.4. So I was able to become the first person to hike that much vertical feet or reach the orbit of the International Space Station in 1 year. And
with a little buffer.
Yeah,
just in case.
With a little bit of buffer, just in case. That is correct.
That's great. So accomplishing 601 in 2011, that meant you were the first person to have done 500 in a year.
Exactly.
Is that when you started to think, I wonder if other people want to do 500 in a year? Let me start a club. And is that when you founded it, or was that down the line?
You said it perfectly there. We started the Incline 500 Club just a short while after that because other people were showing interest in it. And I remember I make a plaque, a wooden plaque, personalized. Christel's got 2 of them, for anyone who becomes a 500 Club member or a 1,000 Club member, you know, different plaques for different clubs.
By the way, we just have one of those made. That's for Greg Cummings. You guys can, you know, if you could tell, a younger version, and it's the 1,000 Club member that we at Inclination we would be giving to each interviewer as we do these interviews.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is not the plaque that I make, obviously. Mine is very rough, all handmade, and it's all personalized for the individual with the date and all kinds of things. It's got kind of an interesting shape to it and looks kind of like the Manitou.
And tell us what's on the back of the plaque as well, because I think that's really amazing.
Well, of course, I put my name on the back since I made it. And then we usually, which we've somewhat gotten away from, we usually put the individual's, the number, as far as the members number, how many, if 34 people have come before you and you're number 35, we put the number 35 on there as the 35th member. And by the way, we have welcomed 35 members to the Incline 500 Club. And we...
This year?
No, ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I've made 35 plaques.
Mm-hmm.
And Christel and myself and Rachel Jones are the only members of the Incline 1000 Club. So
on the back, I'm misunderstanding, but I thought on the back also, in the little squares with the numbers, people sign their initials in them.
Oh, exactly.
And it's kind of a cool thing to meet all the other members. You can sign each other's plaques. Is that how that works?
Yep.
How did I forget that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You are correct.
That's the part I liked that I
Yeah.
thought was fascinating.
I on my plaque anyway, I think it's the most signed plaque because I always take mine up when someone else is receiving their plaque at the top of the incline. That's usually how we do it. I will take my plaque up and have the individual initial their number or whatever, sign their name. And yes, that is something we have encouraged other people to do, and they do it also. But yeah, I think I'm only lacking like 1 name or 2 names, something like that. Yeah, I've got everybody on it. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's a pretty unique thing that you do for everybody. So I love that you do that. It brings the community together. People who go through this amazing challenge have this artifact that they can hang on to, they can treasure in their homes.
They can stick it on the wall and brag about it to their friends.
They sure,
Yeah.
and their kids,
Yeah.
and then like it can be this family heirloom. I think it's real neat that you guys all go up to the top of the incline and celebrate each other whenever somebody finishes. Sometimes we do these big barbecues and stuff. I've hosted quite a few of them.
At your place.
And but I like that you guys pass the plaques around and sign, and it's just a great community. And
Yeah, and I think we all
fun.
together do the last incline. I think I got the privilege of having everybody come for my last incline on the when I did the 500 as well as the 1,000.
Yeah.
And so that was very
It's a big community event.
Exactly.
That individual who's becoming a new member, you know, we do our best to
Yeah.
welcome them and congratulate them and just enjoy the celebration with them of their final ascent. That's the way we try to do it.
so I'd like to get in your head. You just finished 601.
Yes.
Okay. You did it with type 1 diabetes as well. So there was plenty of challenges. What made you come back and do 1,400 and do over double what you had done? Wasn't hard enough the first time?
Well, there was an opinion out there by quite a few people that it would be impossible to do 1,000 ascents in a year. So, you know, anytime somebody says that, you start thinking,
Yeah.
you know, so,
Yeah.
so, you know, the difficulty in explaining things from my perspective is I can't explain it from a normal person's perspective. Diabetes tags along with me every step of the way and makes things so incredibly complicated. It's almost, it really is something that normal people cannot, that people with normal pancreases cannot truly relate to. Your body does in the background what we have to do manually all the time with numerous variables. So the challenge of doing something like that with T1D is not something I can.
well. I can
explain
attest to
well.
that because I remember
Yeah.
doing the incline and Greg would just say, "Okay, I say I'll see you at the top," and he would just go off the incline for a second, grab his insulin, and then check his blood sugar,
Yeah.
and then get an injection, insulin, and then he would just go back. Of course, sometimes he would pass me after he stops, but
Yeah, he's fast.
that's the challenge he had to work with. And also the same thing. I say, "Oh, Greg, do you want a banana?" I say, "Oh, Kesh, I would love to have it, but I can't."
Yeah.
Right? Because if I do, it will just destroy or
My blood sugar.
yeah, exactly. So therefore, yes, I've witnessed it. I've talked to him. My 500 incline, he was doing his challenge. So we see each other going up and down, and the whole day. The whole day. Sometimes 5, sometimes I would do 3. He would do 7.
And at night, yeah.
And at night.
Up there a lot at
Yeah,
night.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, I could attest to that. Anything else, Greg?
Well, yeah, I mean, the 1,400 was just a whole different game. The sad thing about it in my mind is I did not have my wife's blessing to do it. And I went ahead and did it anyway. That caused a lot of stress in our marriage. We hung in there together, but she was literally in the office of a divorce attorney's with a divorce attorney chatting away, figuring how to get rid of this guy. But, and I don't blame her. It was
Because of the incline.
because of the incline, and it probably had to do with type 1 diabetes too, because I don't blame her for getting very tired of that. But thankfully we made it through and she did not, push the button to exit. So we did get through that, but it was a very, very challenging time and challenging event. No question about that. And by the way, the 1,400 was done on the year when the first rebuilding project occurred on the incline. So there were 3 years of rebuilding projects, not all consecutive. I think I said that. But the first one started toward the end of my event in which I did 1,400, but I had to stop at 47 weeks. So I did not get to do the final 5 weeks of the 52-week year. And there was a police officer sitting in his cruiser right next to the incline, way up, right next to the steps.
Gosh.
There were barricades all over the place, big barricades. There were motion sensing cameras all over the incline, and it was well known because they publicized it. Anyone caught up there it was a $100 fine each time. So doing 5 cents, getting past the police officer would have cost me $500,
Yeah.
a day, and I didn't have that kind of money. So I switched over. I stopped at 47 weeks with the 1,400 cents, and then switched over to bar trail and increased the number of vertical feet ascended in a year because I had broken the world record for vertical feet ascended in a year on that event. So I held it. I was just trying to move it up higher. And I did different distances, going to bar camp sometimes. I took Steve Sturmer. I led him. I guided Steve Sturmer up
Pikes Peak.
Up Pikes Peak,
Yeah.
which is not very hard to do. But as far as guiding, but the mountain is different. But guided him to the top. That was his first ever ascent. Steve's very well known up there. And then on the last 8 days of my 52-week year, I went up and down Pikes Peak from the base here every day for the last 8 days.
Yeah.
I could expand on that.
So since you mentioned Steve, so Steve is the Incline tracker, the official tracker of ascents on the Incline. Anybody who's doing the 500 or the 1,000 clubs, Steve has done the most 500 Incline in a year because he does that every year, and he's been doing that since when?
Steve actually is the person who has ascended the incline the most ever in his life.
Yep.
And he's well beyond 5,000, probably 6,000 by now. The guy does it every day, pretty much, as far as I know.
Part of his routine.
I still see him.
I see him
there.
every day. Yeah.
I've probably reached in the range of 5,000, but I don't think I've quite hit that yet. Steve's well beyond that, and he just is a very persistent guy and very admirable there.
And I shall say that's kind of inspired me to come up with the name Incline Tracker, because when I was doing my incline, my ascents, I was trying to figure out who do I report it to? How do people know that I'm doing the incline, like and not cheating, or how who keeps track of it? So I came up with a way to track it, and I found out about Steve Sturner, and that inspired me actually to come up with an app called the Incline Tracker. Hopefully, that's going to be supposedly going live in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, wow.
I've been working on it for 3 years, maybe 5. I don't remember anymore. But Incline Tracker will allow people to just go ahead and download the app, and it will geolocate you at the bottom of the incline. You say start, and then you go up. By the time when you finish, you will just say end. And so that will be recorded in the app automatically. And I'm thinking we start that as a way, hopefully, Steve is still around to do it. But if Steve is not around, I'm hoping the app will be a way for people to keep tracking their incline or their challenges on the incline.
Well, Steve uses apps to track people because we want people to use a tracking app as proof that they have done what they said they do.
Yep.
We had a cheater who, claimed all kinds of things. As it turned out, he was claiming records, my records, when we proved over and over and over he was a fraudster, had roughly ascended 40 to 45% of what he needed to actually reach 100% of my record and take my record. But just an enormous cheater. He was cheating on an app, manipulating it, playing with it, cutting and pasting old ascents to look like new ascents, and we proved it over and over and over.
To tell you that people take the incline seriously, right?
Strava, we told Strava about this, his fraudulent activity. They went in and it looked like they took an axe to his account. I mean, they just, walked in with an axe in a glassware's shop, boom, boom, boom. That's what his tracking app looked like afterward.
Because they had gone in and deleted all of the
They
fake
went
ones.
in and checked and it looked for duplicates. It's impossible to duplicate an ascent on the incline. Physically impossible.
Right, yeah.
On a tracking app, there is no way. You could try the rest of your life. Good luck. But this guy was doing it every day, numerous times a day. And then day after day after day after day.
How many ascents?
Achieving the impossible.
How many ascents? What is the impossible?
You cannot duplicate an ascent.
Oh, yes.
So in other
exactly.
words, like
Yeah.
the effort that it takes to go up the stairs by the second to be exactly
Exactly.
the same.
You can't do
Exactly.
Twice.
That's impossible, right?
That is
Like,
not
if you go from the bottom to the top and you do it like in, you could do the same time, but it will vary.
Exactly.
The
You're gonna-
location,
you're
your
gonna
location will
stop,
vary
you're gonna
along
move
the way.
slightly, you're gonna-
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
kinds of
Exactly.
This guy would cheat by 5 to 6 laps per night. I mean, I can go into great
It's
detail.
like a fingerprint.
I could even
The
put
fingerprint
my
cannot be-
name if
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
wanted to, but anyway, we'll
Yeah.
we'll avoid that controversy.
Well, there's drama on the incline. We all know that.
Fraudsters on the incline, yeah, we don't like fraudsters. In fact, this individual had become, he didn't really become, but he said he'd become a 500 club member, a 1,000 club member. I kicked him out of both clubs. We do not allow cheaters, and his cheating was confirmed 100% over and over and over. I asked him for my plaques back. He said, yes, I will return you your plaques. 4 years later, I'm still waiting. Anyway, we'll not go. We'll leave that.
But now,
subject.
we have an audience. People know we have an audience, and I did not think about that. I think next time we should find a way to have our audience ask some questions. I think I'm at the point where I would like to.
Well, I have one more section
Okay.
I'd like for us to go through.
All right.
We talked through the 601, we talked through the 1400.
Yep.
We haven't spoken about the final record, the 1825. I think that's
1825.
very
That's right.
important for us to talk about because this is now the third time in your life where you've decided to dedicate an entire year to the incline. I would like to understand kind of what's going on in your head. What made you decide to say, yes, I'm going to do it? And is it the last time you're going to do it? Do you think you'll be back?
I guess when I did the 1400, I wasn't able to finish the whole year. So it just kind of irritated me that I wasn't really able to see what I could do.
Yeah.
I wanted to do more than the 1825 when I set off to
I think you're gonna do it 2000, according to what I heard.
Oh, darn it, you gave my secret away.
Okay.
But anyway, that is true. That was my goal at the time when I started out, was to be the first person to reach 2,000 ascents in a year. And I know in my heart and my brain, 100%, I was capable of doing that. The problem is every time I did 6 ascents in a day, it just destroyed me via diabetes. I was just walking on a knife edge. I mean, it's literally between life and death. I was so close to the edge so many times, just drifting away and being gone.
Shall we just say that we had 911 pick you up a couple of times on the incline during that event?
No,
We did not?
No, we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay. I thought we did, but set the record.
No, but so anyway, it's a long story, obviously, but I wanted to reach the 2000, but did not have, with diabetes, type 1, did not have the ability to do that. So I ended up having to stop at the 1825, which is still 5 times per day for 365 days equals 825. I worked it that way so that that would be the number. I also had injuries that prevented me from doing ascents certain days. I ended up having to take 6 of those days off during the year. I made it to ascent number 287, hoped to make it to, day number 287, hoped to make it to 365 without taking a day off, but I was injured at 288 and just destroyed my leg. I went to a orthopedic surgeon's office, and he and another doctor consulted and figured out that I had a stress fracture in my tibia. And oh my gosh, was it painful. All I had to do was touch it, and it just sent me through the roof. It was.
And how did you come back and keep doing more inclines with that type of injury? Because usually that takes people out for a month, 2 months.
Well, first of all, can he be certain it was a stress fracture? You can't really. That was these two doctors.
Maybe touching it,
determination.
hurting is the best.
Oh my gosh. So I spent 4 days sitting in a recliner watching Netflix, and just mad as can be that I couldn't be on the incline.
Yeah.
But anyway, after that, I went back on the 5th day and did 1 cent and was in so much pain. It was unbearable. So I went home. I figured, okay, that's it. I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm going to have to stop. And the next day I convinced myself, nope, we got to try again. So I went up, exactly the same thing happened. Did 1 ascent, came home, was done. I mean, too much pain. I'm thinking, okay, that's it. Next day I convinced myself, try it again. So as it worked out over time, the numbers came up, and I eventually got back to 5 ascents in a day, but I lost almost 50 ascents in that time. I re-injured it again, had to take a day off, so I lost 50 ascents. And plus, if I had done those 50 ascents, I could have pushed on a little bit harder because I kept the numbers down towards the end just so that I could finish with 1825 and be exactly 5 times a day for 365 days. So I'm sorry, what were you saying about?
Well, I remember when you were doing your 1825,
yes.
I would come and you would not be here. And the stories would fly around that, oh, Greg went to the hospital, or there was an injury, 911 picked him up, and I wouldn't see him for 2 or 3 days. But people come up with stories, so
None of that is true. Although there was a time, and the story's too long, so I'll just be real brief. I was on the incline very late one night, took a little bit of insulin at the top of the incline, and then ate, like 2 units, and ate a bunch of bars and things on the way down, just slow, going down slowly. Got into my car. I always, and this is weird, but it's kind of the key to the whole thing. I'm always real self-conscious of bothering people. I like to, close my doors quietly, especially up here on Ruxton, where, you've got a lot of residential area there. And so I get in my car, I close the door, I put my car into neutral, and I always back it in. So if I'm in neutral, it'll just glide.
Yeah.
So I don't wake anybody up. I'm just always thinking about that thing. So I'm gliding down Ruxton, okay? And I know that's illegal. I'm sorry about that, police officers. But anyway, I'm gliding down, I'm coasting down Ruxton, and I get right down here to this
roundabout.
Wall that's in. If you go straight down here, you more or less hit a wall.
Oh yeah.
And I remember being so confused. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna hit that wall. And then I came to a stop, and I remember turning the wheel so that I would continue down towards the roundabout, and then I blacked out. I'm gone.
Oh.
That's it. And my car continued coasting. Thankfully, if I was in drive, who knows what would have happened. But my car just continued coasting and got right down to the roundabout, just to the right side of the roundabout, and stopped.
Wow.
And I'm in there having a slight seizure because my blood glucose is so low. This is late at night. All the bars are open.
About like 9 p.m. because I said goodbye. I saw you going down. I said, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. I told somebody, right?
Really? I thought it was more like 11 or something.
It could have been too.
I think it was. I'm pretty sure of that. But anyway, we get down there. I'm down there at the bottom, totally unconscious, and people think I'm drunk because the bars are
because you're right next to the bar.
This guy's not responding to anybody. He's just sitting there in his car right at the roundabout. Shouldn't be stopped there. And a friend of mine who worked, I forget her name now. She used to work up the Iron Springs Chateau. She was in the group that spotted me, and she said, no, that's Greg. He's working on, he's trying to set a record up here. He's got type 1 diabetes. That guy's not drunk, and some guy takes out like a baton or something and breaks my back window because everything was locked in my car. Breaks my back right window, gains access to the car. They open up my front door and start feeding me with carbohydrates, calling 911. the paramedics show up, and by that time, what they had been giving me, it took a while for the paramedics to show up, but what the carbohydrates they had been giving me acted correctly in my system, raised my blood sugar. I start coming to, and just thanking everybody, really appreciating what they've done. And then of course the the paramedics show up and they have to check me all over and everything, but they said, you seem to be fine. So I got glass everywhere in my car, all over me, on and on. But they let me go. I was certainly much better, and they let me go, and I was able to drive home. And then, of course, had to get a window replaced.
Right.
But yeah, that's how that went. There were no other 911 calls or anything like that. I've placed 911 calls for people, but no one had to do that.
All right, rumors debunked. All right.
Yeah.
And then, so anybody else, any questions that they would like to ask Greg? I think would be the time to do it because we're about to wrap up. Trevor, is that correct?
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay. Well, Rachel, one of our 1,000 Club members.
Our Incline 1000 Club member here.
Did you have any scary run-ins with wildlife?
Did you have any scary run-ins with wildlife?
Yeah.
At the base once, there was a bear right at the base. I'm sitting on the bench, and there's a bear that walks by just, 30 feet away. Well, probably a little further than that, maybe 50 feet away. And I'm just like, holy. And I wanted to get a picture of him, so he's just walking along. So I decided to walk up the incline a little ways and snap a picture. And he looks over at me and just kind of gives this wolf. And it's just, holy moly. I mean, this is a big, strong bear. And it's just like, okay, I think I've overstepped a little bit and back down. I had plans of turning around and running down and jumping over the fence down there if he was coming after me. But
well, you surely have seen the fox.
Oh,
Foxes,
yeah.
though, yeah.
Fox,
They're always with us. Yes. I've seen
Yeah.
so many of them.
The fox is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He and I were close buds there for a while.
Yeah.
Not really, but
Yeah.
they were a lot of fun.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
I have a classic one. Do you have an Ascent PR?
An Ascent PR. During my 601, the first record on the incline, one day I went up there with I carry this big green butt pack, and it can be packed with all kinds of things. When I was doing the 601, I would pack it with 2 liters of Gatorade and all kinds of snacks, of course, because I have diabetes and clothes and everything. This thing was weighing 10 pounds. I started off one day and realized when I got past the power lines there, I'm thinking, my heart's hardly beating, I mean, it seems like I'm sitting down at the base. I mean, what am I doing? So I think I got to kick it in gear, see how fast I can go. So I trotted up the incline as quick as I could and got there in 28:16. And that is still my record. I've gotten very close to breaking that before. I've done a lot of 28s, 29s, 30s, that kind of thing, but never been able to break the 28:16. Darn it! I wanted to. I wanted to get in the 27s, but I've never. And I'm sure I won't. So
That's still sub 30, and not many people in this world can say they can do a sub 30 up the incline. So
I've been to sub 30.
impressive.
I was younger, 15 years ago,
Uh-huh.
but maybe 10 years ago. I did maybe 28, 29, but not 16. I think it was close to 29.
yeah, 28:16.
Yeah. That's. I don't think I've gotten that low.
So I have a question for people who might be listening, who might be considering doing the 500 Club Challenge. What advice would you give them, given you're the founder and you've done it so many times in your life? What would you recommend for people?
Good question. I'd have to think about that a bit, but certainly get yourself in decent physical shape before you come up here. We just had a gentleman pass away up there recently. We've had numerous individuals pass away on the incline, likely because they're not in the kind of shape they need to be to be doing that. So please get yourself in good shape before you come over here and start messing around on the incline. It's just too hard physically going up 2,000 vertical feet in 1 mile. It's too much. So do that first. Come over here, enjoy the incline, but go slow. just have some days where you just enjoy yourself. You know, you see these certain people who will go up there and they'll just take off at full speed. And 100 steps up, they're just dying on the side of the incline, you know, and then they take off again and just die on the side of the incline. It's ridiculous. Take your time, go at a nice steady pace, enjoy yourself, take plenty of water, take plenty of snacks, have a nice time going up, see how you like it, you know, doing the incline. Then work yourself up to maybe trying to do that twice in a day or 3 times in a day, whatever. But take it slow, take it easy, pace yourself. It's not a speed event unless you're some super athlete who wants to go, you know, you're in super great shape and you want to go see how fast you can do it or whatever. That's a different story, but take your time, enjoy yourself.
Well, my recommendation would be stop by Inclination.
Oh, absolutely.
Get a burrito.
100.
And then if you decide to bail out, call us. We'll prepare a bailout green for you or smoothie. Anyway, I had to say that.
Inclination Cafe, definitely. That's right. Get your coffee and enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
Well, Greg, it was very fun talking with you and hearing so many new stories. I hadn't heard half of that stuff, so very cool.
Well, let's give Greg a hand of applause, guys. Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys for coming. So we'll be here next week live again, and I think our second interview, hopefully, and then we'll have a third interview. It's gonna be me. I'm number 3 on the 1,000 Club, and then so we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
What a
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of cool
It was
stories.
fun.